Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it is Monday. It's July 15th. This will be our chart lesson for the day, and believe it or not, we're already halfway through this month. Seemed like it just started. I guess the holiday and the vacation time made it go by quicker, but man, what a fast month so far. Time just keeps clipping by. But quick look at our daily chart. You can see we're just kind of working side. We did make a new high again today. We're getting well into the overbought territory. Um, this market's hot, but at the same time, the path of least resistance is down, I believe. And so when you do see sell-offs, they tend to pick up steam. It looked like we were going to have a pretty good move down at first, but as usual, late in the day, they rallied it back, brought a lot of it back. So at this point, we're still working up to slightly sideways. We continue to close inside that trend channel line, so maybe that is the correct location for it. We'll have to see. But that's where we stand as of today. This market just it wants to go up, and don't argue with it. As long as it keeps going higher, just be careful getting long into the highs of the day or the overnight highs or any. Always make sure you got room to scalp out. That's the best way I can describe it. And sometimes people get confused by that. And what I'm saying is just like here's a second entry long right here on this chart. First entry and then a second entry on this break above this bar. When I say have enough room to scalp out, you need room between your entry point here and the highs that this made. Sometimes you even want to consider the closes. So make sure you got room to scalp out there before entering the trade, and if you don't enter it. Try to get a limit order with a little better entry, or just skip the trade, because you will often, you see how this got up there and got higher and then turns itself off, and it would have stopped you out before it went higher again. So you got to be careful trying to get long into highs, or same thing with the lows. Don't get short right into the lows. Make sure you have room to scalp out. There's a reason we do the scalp and run, and we scalp out the majority of our trade first, and then the runners are just bonus if we can get one. Uh, so keep that in mind. But there it is, kind of a neutral day, kind of a range day in the end, although really we had a big rally and then a big sell-off, and then we just kind of rallied back a little bit of that sell-off to make it look like kind of a neutral day. But we did close up quite a bit from the previous day, so there's that as well. So it's just a wild, crazy market right now, and you have to be extremely careful, because if you wait too late to get long, then all of a sudden it sells off, and then finally by the time you throw in the hat, then it reverses and takes some of it back. So just be extremely careful. Let's flip over to the 2000 tick chart and take a look at it. Okay, here it is. You can see that we had two legs up. We actually overshot that quite a bit, and then we just reversed, and we got this spike and channel down, and this was a pretty strong sell-off. It's a little mixed on the way down, and then we kind of bottom out. It rallied up from there, sold off. We got a little overshoot here. It looks like an overshoot. Maybe it's not. You could adjust this, and it still looks okay. It doesn't fit as well. I think it's an overshoot, but we still had a break, a move to a new low, and then they kind of rallied up out of that. All that was well after 2:30, so it didn't make much difference. We weren't really trading this anyway. So that's kind of how the day played out. But let's zoom in here. We'll go through the trades, and we'll wrap this day up. We had a real tight range here for a little bit too before we made this second leg up. But let's zoom in and go through the trades. You had to be a little patient. We had this news item this morning, so you had to sit tight, and then you're just kind of waiting on something to happen. There's a high or low here in the second entry long. I wasn't crazy about this one yet, because we're just kind of chopping sideways here. We we've already made a new high on this. We haven't made a new low here, and it looks like we're getting real flat. So it's kind of right in the middle of a possible range. I didn't mark the range out, but I just think you have to sit tight on that one. You can see that there is a kind of a range within the range there. We'll just make it a little different color. And if you do the measured move, that puts right up here near the other high of this range. We ended up going a little higher there. But I think you can treat this like a failed breakout. It is a second entry short, way away from the EMA. You got a little 2-bar matching high and a very bearish bar. My only concern with this one was it didn't break lower here, and it did make a new high. Odds are it's probably going to run back to the EMA, but it's still a little aggressive, so I marked it green. And you don't get another chance to enter. It just runs all the way to the other side, bounces, and then we're kind of chopping around in the middle again. You've only got a double bottom here, and you've got no break of this yet. This is the first break, so I'm not crazy about going long right there either. I think you need a higher low or something, and you don't get that until over here. And you also get this is basically a double bottom, so you get a first entry, second entry. So you could treat that like a failed second entry, and you can clearly see 2 legs down, and this does close back above the EMA. I like going long on that one. Again, it's just a higher, it's basically you made 3 higher lows in a row. So it's still a little aggressive. I marked it green, but it is a little aggressive. And here I would assume we're trying to make a retest on this channel and this channel. Or either we're just going to be in a range here, but this thing kind of takes on off. We do get a breakout, a lower high here, fairly low risk, 6 ticks, a little ways away from the EMA. I like that trade. It does bounce again, and we're just kind of chopping along. We get a higher low here. And this is a first entry, second entry failure right off the EMA, and we're making higher lows again. It's a little risky because you're going long into the highs, and I just talked about that before. And you see what happens. It runs up, makes a high, and it looks like it's going to turn down, but it ends up going higher. It was pretty obvious this thing wanted to go higher here, but you got to be careful with it. So I marked it green, but I'm not crazy about it. Now, once we get going here, this is one of those strong trends that we talk about. Real tight channel with a strong trend, and the corrections are just a bar or so. It doesn't go very deep. It bounces right off the trend line. So anywhere you got a signal bar on here against that key entry point, you could enter that. So I did mark a couple of them here. There's a signal bar here. This one I don't think qualifies. I don't know if that broke lower or higher first, but it's an engulfing bar, so I'd skip it regardless. You need to wait till it closes, and then it closes to neutral. You get another one here that closes on its high. Now we did make our measured move here, but with that still being in play, this channel, I'd say you're okay to take that. And you can see it does run up, and then we just reverse here. You don't really get a chance to go short until we've already had a break here, but notice you got to move up a first entry, then it turns back up, breaks higher, fails, and turns down. So if it breaks below that, it's a second entry short. You'd expect a new low here. So I like entering there on that second entry. Then it rallies up, gets a close outside. It tries to make a new high, and you get another second entry short there. Notice the new low, first entry, turns back up, and then it turns back down. So if it breaks below that, it actually was a second entry short when it broke before the green bar, but you can't use that for a signal bar, so you have to wait for this one to close and see what it does. It is bearish enough. They do have matching highs, so you could go low there. Again, I'm not crazy about it, but it's a second entry short. Maybe you take it. Then you get another two-legged correction here, and it does confirm a trend line right across there. It's not a second entry short by the counts because there's a first entry, then there's a second entry, and now that's a third entry. However, it clearly looks like 2 legs up to a key entry point, with a very bearish bar. I like that trade. I'm going to take it, and it does turn into a fairly nice trade, although I doubt you get a runner on it depending on how you played it. Runs on down, you get a close outside. Here you get a first entry, and then the second entry, it looks a little congested, but we'll probably make a new low here. And there's just enough room on a break below that. If it makes a new low, I think it only needed an extra tick or something. It's close, and it is a little sideways, so I did make it green, but it turns out to be a nice trade. It actually makes its 2 legs down, and then it reverses. And this is kind of a repeat pattern. It runs up, you get a break, and you make a lower high. Unfortunately, this doesn't make the same high as this. This one has a tick higher, so I didn't mark that as a repeat pattern. It's really, really close with all those touches across there. It's another one you might say, okay, I want to take that. So I'll mark it green. It's a repeat pattern. We saw it a couple of times back over here where it runs up. Doesn't quite make a new high and makes a lower high there. Comes back here and you get a triple test, but this signal bar is not good enough, and I don't think you want to trade that on an engulfing bar. Hopefully you get a lower high, but you don't. You have to go short right into a triple bottom, so you just kind of have to skip that. This was a little failed break lower here, but again, I'm just not crazy about going long there. What you turn out, what it ends up is you have another little range here, and I just think it's too early to try to. It's not a good enough signal bar set up to try to go long there. Even if you know there's a good chance it's going back, it's not a sure thing. So I don't think you want to take that trade. But when it comes back up here, it makes a lower high and gives you this nice signal bar right off the key entry point, right at the midline. I like going short. Man, look at it go. That turns out to be a nice trade. There's actually a second entry short right here on a hidden second entry, but we're not back to the midline. We're not back to the EMA. I just don't think you can take that one. It does. You do. There's actually a trend line here. I didn't draw this one. And you do get a break and a new low, and then it rallies, and you get a 2-leg correction here, and then it makes a new high. This one was tempting, but again, it makes a tick higher, so it's kind of an inside bar. Even though it's a second entry, I think you have to skip it. See if you get a higher low, and it actually breaks lower and turns up here. I don't know that you could get in this because it gaps over and goes so fast, but try a limit order, see what happens. Maybe you can ride that back up to the highs. And then, of course, you get a second entry short. It's your first close outside, but you got those 2-bar matching highs, and it breaks higher and fails. If it breaks lower there, we're probably at least coming back to the EMA, and we're probably running down to make a new low. And that's exactly what happened. The bottom just falls out of that one. That's a very nice trade right there. If you can catch that one, you're in pretty good shape. And then we get what I think is an overshoot here. I actually think the channel was up here. And that's an overshoot. And it comes back and tests the channel on a higher low. I like going long there. It's a little aggressive because we're in a downtrend, although we do have a break and a new low. Sometimes you get, and there are 2 legs down there, but sometimes you'll get another leg to another new low. But being that far away from the EMA, there's a good chance it's going to make 2 legs back, even if it does try to go lower. I still made this green because we're in a strong downtrend here. Obvious. You can see that channel. It's very obvious. There's no denying it. So you got to be careful trying to pick bottoms. And we're just chopping along. You get a double test here, but again, I don't think that's enough in a downtrend. I think you need a triple test. It looks like you're going to get one here, and you do, but we also had this failed breakout, which usually leads to a failure on the other side at a minimum if it doesn't go lower. And so being in this khaki channel, I don't like going long there. And it would have worked, but it's not worth risking it. You see we did push to another new low before it rallies out of there. So that's my problem with it. This one's tempting here. It's a second entry long. The problem is it didn't close back inside the range. It closes outside. And it's low risk because it's 5 ticks. I mean, it's one you might argue that is green. But This thing's still trying to go lower, so it's just, but you can play range rules here, so maybe you take that one. It ends up taking off, rocketing off. You get 2 legs up, and then it turns down. And again, we're just chopping sideways. I don't see anything gives you a good enough signal bar. It does kind of confirm the trend line there, but I'd like to see another touch with a good bar. And again, it's just congestion. Here it finally looks like we're getting a bounce off the trend line that people can see the trend line and that maybe it's in play, but it's just a first entry. Then you get a close outside, and next thing you know, we're into 230. So I just don't see anything from here on that I like. Really, from about 12 o'clock on, there just wasn't much happening here. Just kind of a quiet, sideways, mixed trading afternoon. But it was a pretty good downtrend until that point. So clearly 2 legs up, and then clearly a spiking channel down. And then we were into 230. So there it is. That's how I saw it today. Again, we had the news. There was 11:30 Fed speaker, but you can't really pay much attention to that. You don't know when they're going to say something or what they're going to say or if they're going to say anything at all. So you just pretty much have to trade on through those. Don't worry about those. Now, if it's an actual Fed, like FOMC announcement, by all means, be short. Be flat an hour prior. But these speakers, you just can't pay. You'll see luncheons and speakers and things like that. Don't pay much attention to those. There's not really any way you can control that one. So, but anyway, there it is. That's how I saw it today. Not much else I can say about it. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow. But I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.